The council chamber stretched so wide that its far walls disappeared into a blue haze. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the human podium, a tiny figure among giants. Around her, beings from 847 worlds watched with their many eyes, listened with organs she could not name. She had prepared for this moment for 3 months. The data was perfect. The solution was elegant. It would save billions of lives in the outer rim systems where resources were running out, where children were dying, where entire planets faced collapse. Elena touched the control pad. Holographic displays filled the air above the assembly floor. Charts showed supply routes. Numbers told stories of suffering. Images captured the desperate faces of aliens who needed help. She spoke clearly, translating her words into the common galactic language. Her voice carried across the vast chamber through technology that humanity had helped improve. The presentation lasted 20 minutes. When she finished, silence filled the chamber. Elena felt hope rising in her chest. Perhaps they would listen this time. Perhaps humanity's ideas would finally be taken seriously. Archon Threlvac spoke first. His crystalline body reflected light in cold patterns. His voice sounded like breaking glass, primitive thinking. The Archon's words cut through her hope like a knife. Humans always propose such simple solutions. They do not understand the complexity of galactic civilization. Other voices joined in. The Zentharan delegate laughed, a sound like drums. The collective representative made dismissive gestures with its multiple appendages. One by one, the great powers of the galaxy rejected the human proposal without real consideration. Elena gripped the podium edge. 200 years. Humanity had been part of this council for 200 years. 2 centuries of trying to help, of offering ideas, of working for peace. And still they were treated like children who did not understand the adult world. The vote came quickly. The motion on the floor was not about her proposal anymore. Someone had changed it. Now they were voting on something else entirely, to reduce humanity's status, to make them observers instead of full members, to take away their voice completely. The holographic display showed the tally as votes came in. Green lights for yes, red lights for no. The chamber filled with green. 793 species voted to diminish humanity. Only 53 voted against it. Elena stood perfectly still as the final count appeared. She felt something break inside her. Not anger exactly, something colder, something final. She walked to the center of the assembly floor. This required permission normally, but she did not ask for it. The Archon began to object, but she was already speaking. Her voice came out steady and clear. Humanity came to this council with hope. We came with friendship. We brought our best ideas and our strongest will to help others. For 200 years, we have served on peacekeeping missions. We have shared our medical advances. We have maintained your communications networks. We have done everything you asked and more. She paused, looking around the chamber at all those alien faces. And in return, you have mocked us, dismissed us, treated us as lesser beings not worthy of respect. Today you voted to silence our voice completely. You believe we will accept this, that we need you more than you need us. Elena's hands were steady as she reached up and removed the ambassador's insignia from her uniform. The silver badge caught the light as she held it up for all to see. You are wrong. Humanity hereby formally withdraws from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately. We will remove all our personnel from Council facilities within 90 days. We will close our borders to Council traffic. We will pursue our own path among the stars. The chamber erupted. Voices shouted in 100 languages. The Archon demanded order. But Elena was not finished. I leave you with one warning. You think you understand humanity because we seem emotional and idealistic. You think our kindness is weakness. Our desire for peace is naivety. But you forget something important. Humans did not reach the stars by being weak. We did not survive our own violent history by being naive. We chose peace. We chose cooperation. We offered you our friendship. She dropped the insignia. It hit the floor with a small metallic sound that somehow carried through the noise. You have rejected that offer. So now you will learn what humanity becomes when we stop holding ourselves back for your comfort. When we stop asking for permission. When we pursue our own destiny without your approval or interference. Elena turned and walked toward the exit. The human delegation rose and followed her. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden quiet. Behind them, the Archon's voice rang out. You will regret this decision, human. You will come back begging for readmission. The galaxy is vast and dangerous. You cannot survive alone. Elena did not turn around. She did not respond. She simply kept walking. The doors closed behind the last human, sealing them out of the council chamber forever. In the chamber, celebration began almost immediately. The Xantharan delegate proposed a toast. The troublesome humans were finally gone. The council could return to business as usual without their constant interference and naive proposals. Nobody noticed the few delegates who sat quietly, their expressions worried. Nobody paid attention to the Archon's oldest advisor, who whispered that perhaps they had made a terrible mistake. The party continued late into the station's night cycle. Species who rarely agreed on anything united in their relief that humanity had removed itself from galactic politics. Far below the celebration, in the docking levels, human ships were already preparing to depart. Engineers worked quickly and efficiently. Diplomats gathered their belongings. Families with children moved toward transport vessels. Elena stood at a viewport watching the stars. Her second-in-command approached quietly. "Do you really think they will regret it?" he asked. Elena's reflection in the viewport showed no emotion. Yes, but by the time they realize their mistake, everything will have changed. The galaxy they know is ending today. They just do not understand that yet. The last human ship departed Concordia Prime 36 hours later. Behind them, the great station continued its endless orbit around the neutron star, full of species that believed they had won. None of them knew they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. The day humanity departed the Council was indeed the day the universe changed forever. But not in any way the Council members expected. The exodus happened faster than anyone expected. Within 30 days, every human diplomatic mission had closed. Every embassy stood empty. Every consultation office had been cleared out. At first, the Council members barely noticed. They were too busy congratulating themselves. The troublesome humans were gone. Finally, they could conduct business without constant interruptions about ethics and fairness. But by day 45, problems began to surface. Small things at first. A communications relay on the edge of Xantharan space stopped working. The technicians who arrived to fix it discovered that humans had been maintaining it for decades. Nobody else knew how the systems worked. A medical station in the outer rim ran out of a critical medicine. The usual supply ships did not arrive. Investigation revealed that human pharmaceutical companies had been producing 70% of that particular drug. No other species had the manufacturing capacity to replace them quickly. Trade ships began reporting problems at jump gates. The gates still worked, but they were slower, less efficient. Engineers checked the systems and found human-designed improvements throughout the network. Improvements that were now degrading without human maintenance. By day 60, panic started to spread. The collective's economy, which had seemed strong, was actually dependent on human trade in ways nobody had realized. Human merchants had connected systems that otherwise would never have traded with each other. Without those connections, prices began to rise. Shortages appeared. The Council called emergency sessions. Archon Threlvax demanded reports on the extent of human involvement in galactic infrastructure. The results shocked everyone. Humans had quietly made themselves essential to countless systems, not through force, not through demands, simply through competence and willingness to help. The outer rim crisis that Elena had tried to solve grew worse. Without human peacekeepers, old enemies resumed fighting. Without human mediators, diplomatic solutions fell apart. 3 minor species faced extinction as violence escalated and resources vanished. On day 90, the last human left Council space. Every human ship, every station, every outpost went dark. The borders of human territory closed completely. No messages came out. No ships went in. The Council sent diplomatic missions. The ships reached human space and found nothing. The border stations were empty but operational. Automated systems turned the ships away with recorded messages. Humans were not accepting visitors. They were not interested in negotiation. Months passed. The galactic economy continued to decline. Medical shortages killed thousands. Communications networks degraded further. The Council fractured into arguing factions, each blaming the others for the crisis. Some species tried to fill the gaps humans left behind. But it was not simple. Humans had not just done jobs. They had done them with an efficiency and dedication that was hard to match. They had worked long hours for relatively little pay because they believed in helping others. They had maintained systems that nobody else wanted to maintain, because those systems served poor worlds with nothing to offer in return. A year after the departure, scouts finally managed to penetrate the edge of human space. What they found confused them. Energy signatures unlike anything in known technology. Massive construction projects visible on long-range sensors, but no humans willing to talk. The scouts tried to go deeper into human territory. Their ships vanished. No distress signals. No wreckage found, just gone. The message was clear. Stay out. 2 years after the departure, the first confirmed sighting happened. A science vessel exploring an uninhabited system detected a massive structure in orbit around a gas giant. The vessel approached carefully, ready to retreat if threatened. The structure was clearly human in origin, but the technology was decades ahead of anything humans had shown the Council. The station was 10 times larger than anything humanity had built before. Its power output suggested energy generation methods that should not exist. The science vessel sent detailed scans back to the Council. Physicists studied the data in disbelief. The humans had somehow made breakthrough after breakthrough. In just 2 years, they had advanced further than most species did in centuries. More reports came in. Human ships spotted in deep space. Not the vessels that had left Council territory. These were new designs, faster, more powerful, built with unknown materials that sensor scans could barely analyze. The humans were expanding, rapidly. Systems that had been empty now showed human colonies. Planets were being terraformed at speeds that should be impossible. Infrastructure appeared overnight. It was as if humanity had unlocked some secret that allowed them to build and grow without the normal limitations. 3 years after the departure, the pattern became clear. Humanity was not just surviving. They were thriving. And they were doing it all in the dark spaces between known systems, in places the Council had deemed worthless or too difficult to develop. Archon Threlvax called another emergency session. The Council chamber was half empty. Many species were too busy dealing with their own crises to attend. Those who came looked worried. "We must address the human situation," the Archon said. "They are expanding into unclaimed territory. They are developing technology we do not understand. They refuse all contact. This cannot be allowed to continue." A Xantheran military commander stood. "Send a battle fleet. Remind them of their place. Show them they cannot simply ignore the Council." Other voices agreed. The humans needed to be brought back under control. They had to be made to understand that leaving the Council had consequences. But a few voices dissented. An old scholar from a species that had always been friendly with humans spoke up. "I fear we do not understand what we created when we drove them away. Humans were holding back when they were part of the Council, limiting themselves, trying not to threaten us. Now they have no reason to hold back anymore." The Archon dismissed the concern. "They are one species. We are 847. They may have made some advances, but they cannot match the combined power of the galactic community." The scholar sat down, looking unconvinced. Around them, the Council argued about what to do. Send diplomats, send soldiers, send threats. Every option was discussed. Finally, they agreed on a compromise. A delegation would be sent. A large one with diplomatic credentials and a military escort. They would demand a meeting with human leadership. They would offer to discuss terms for humanity's return to the Council. And if the humans refused, the military escort would remind them that the Council was not to be ignored. The delegation assembled at the edge of human space. 20 diplomatic vessels, 50 warships, representatives from all the major powers. It was an impressive show of force. They sent a message into human territory. "We come to negotiate. We demand an audience with your leaders. Respond within 1 standard day." The response came in 30 minutes. Coordinates. A time. Nothing else. The delegation jumped to the coordinates. What they found there made every ship's crew fall silent. They had arrived at Sol Earth's home system. But it was not the Sol they remembered. The sun was wrapped in structures. A Dyson swarm. Thousands of stations and collectors forming a sphere around the star, harvesting its energy. The amount of power being generated was almost beyond calculation. Habitats floated in perfect orbits, each one large enough to hold millions. There were hundreds of them. The human population had exploded, and the technology on display was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. A voice came over their communications. "Welcome to the Terran Sphere. Ambassador Vasquez will see you now. Please follow the guide ships." Small vessels appeared, moving with impossible grace. The delegation followed them through the swarm, every crew member staring at the evidence of humanity's transformation. In 3 years, they had built an empire in their own system, an empire that made the Council's greatest achievements look primitive. The delegation docked at a massive station near Earth. They were escorted through corridors filled with art and technology blended seamlessly. And at the end of those corridors, in a simple office with windows looking out at the blue planet below, Elena Vasquez waited for them. She looked older. Her hair had gone gray, but her eyes held the same steel they had shown the day she walked out of the council chamber. "Gentlemen, ladies, beings of all kinds." She smiled slightly. "Welcome to the new center of human civilization. I trust you found your way here without difficulty." The delegation sat in uncomfortable silence in the meeting room. Through the wide windows, Earth turned slowly below them. It looked peaceful, beautiful. Nothing like the dire warning some council members had made about human aggression. Elena stood at the head of the table, her hands folded calmly. The Archon's representative, a younger crystalline being named Velmoth, spoke first. "Ambassador Vasquez, we come with an offer from the Galactic Council. The vote that stripped your status was hasty, poorly considered. The Council wishes to reverse that decision and welcomes humanity back to full membership." Elena's expression did not change. "That is very kind. But no." The Xantheran military commander, General Krax, leaned forward. "You must understand your position. The Council represents 847 species. You are one species, no matter how impressive this display." She gestured at the windows. "You cannot stand alone against the galaxy." Elena smiled slightly. "General, we are not standing against the galaxy. We are simply standing apart from the Council. There is a difference." She touched a control panel. The windows became screens showing images from across human space. Colonies on dozens of worlds. Massive shipyards producing vessels at incredible speeds. Research stations where scientists worked on projects the Council could not imagine. When we were part of the Council, we held ourselves back. We did this deliberately. We did not want to threaten other species. We did not want to cause fear. So we limited our technological development. We restricted our expansion. We asked permission before taking any significant action. Another delegate, a small being from a peaceful trading species, spoke up nervously. "But the advancement we see here, in 3 years, how is this possible?" Elena's smile faded. "Because we stopped holding back. Humans have always been capable of rapid development. It is how we survived on Earth, how we reached the stars, but we chose to move slowly in galactic society. We chose to let other species feel comfortable around us." She changed the images. Now they showed the 3 species that the Council had abandoned in the Outer Rim. But they were not dying. They were thriving. New cities. Healthy populations. Children playing in clean streets. When the Council refused to help these people, we did. We sent aid. We shared technology. We taught them how to build sustainable systems. We gave them what they needed to survive and grow. Do you know what they gave us in return? The delegation stayed silent. Loyalty, trust, friendship. They joined us willingly. They are now part of the Terran Sphere. Equal partners. Not subjects. Not lesser members. True equals working together for common goals. Velmoth's crystalline form flickered with agitation. "You are building an empire, challenging the Council's authority. This cannot be permitted." Elena's eyes went cold. "We are not building an empire. We are building a commonwealth. And we are not asking the Council's permission. That is the point you seem to be missing. The Council has no authority over us anymore. You gave that up when you expelled us." General Krax stood abruptly. "This is unacceptable. The Council maintains order in the galaxy. Without us, there is chaos. You will return to the Council. You will accept proper oversight. Or there will be consequences." Elena looked at the general for a long moment. Then she pressed another control. The screens changed again. This time they showed military vessels. Human warships. The designs were sleek and deadly. The weapon systems were clearly visible, and there were thousands of them. General, do you see these ships? Each one is more advanced than anything in the Council fleets. Each one is crewed by people who remember being dismissed and mocked. Each one is ready to defend human territory and our allies against any threat. She leaned forward, her voice quiet but firm. So please tell me more about consequences. The room fell silent. The delegates looked at each other nervously. They had come expecting to negotiate from a position of strength. Instead, they found themselves facing a power they could not fully understand. The small trader delegate spoke again, voice shaking slightly. What do you want? What are your intentions toward the rest of the galaxy? Elena's expression softened. That is a better question. Thank you for asking it. What we want is simple. We want to live in peace. We want to help species that need help. We want to explore and grow without constantly being told we are too young, too primitive, too emotional. She sat down at the table, facing them directly. The Council is broken.
You know this.
I know this. The galaxy knows this. It has been broken for a long time. It favors the strong over the weak, the old over the new. It maintains a hierarchy that benefits a few species at the expense of many. Humanity will not return to that system. But we are not abandoning the galaxy. We are offering something different. A true commonwealth where every species has equal voice, where decisions are made for the good of all, not just the powerful, where younger species are mentored, not dismissed. Velmoth made a harsh sound. You want to replace the Council? To put yourselves in charge? Elena shook her head. No, we want to offer an alternative. Species can choose to join the Terran Commonwealth if they wish, or they can stay with the Council, or they can remain independent. We will not force anyone, but we will not rejoin a broken system that refused to change. What if we refuse to allow this? General Krax demanded. What if the Council decides your Commonwealth is a threat? Elena stood and walked to the windows. Earth rotated peacefully below. Then the Council will learn something it should have learned 3 years ago. Humanity did not need the Council. The Council needed humanity. And now that need will become very, very clear. Before anyone could respond, alarms sounded throughout the station. The delegates jumped up, alarmed. Elena remained calm, listening to a message through an implant. It seems the Archon sent a battle fleet to follow you. She looked at Velmoth. They have just entered the Terran sphere without permission. This is unfortunate, the screens changed. Now they showed space near the edge of the Sol system. A massive fleet of Council warships had emerged from jump space. Hundreds of vessels, the largest military force the Council had assembled in decades, and facing them a single human ship. It was enormous, larger than any vessel the delegates had seen. Its hull gleamed with an energy field that made sensor readings impossible. General Krax stared at the screen. What is that? Elena's voice was sad. That is what happens when humanity stops asking permission. That is our Guardian-class defense platform. It is mobile, heavily armed, and completely autonomous. On the screen, the Council fleet opened fire. Every weapon, every ship. A storm of destructive force that should have vaporized any target. The human ship's shields absorbed everything. The energy field simply soaked up the attack like water into sand. Then the ship responded, not with overwhelming force, not with destruction. It fired precise beams that disabled every Council ship's weapons and engines. In under 30 seconds, the entire fleet was helpless. No ships were destroyed. No crews were killed. But the message was clear, complete, undeniable. The delegates stared at the screen in shock. General Krax sat down heavily. Elena turned back to them, her expression weary. Rescue ships are already on their way to help the fleet. All crews will be safely returned to Council space. But you need to understand something. This was not our full strength. This was one ship. We have hundreds like it, and technology beyond what you just witnessed. She walked to the door, then paused. I suggest you return to the Council. Tell them what you have seen. Tell them the galaxy is changing. Tell them they can change with it or they can become irrelevant. The choice is theirs. The door opened. Guards waited outside to escort the delegation back to their ships. But Ambassador, the small trader delegate, called out. What will you do now? Elena looked back, and for the first time she smiled warmly. Now we build something better, and any species that wants to join us, that truly believes in equality and cooperation, will be welcomed with open arms. The delegation departed in silence. Behind them, the Terran sphere continued its work, building, growing, becoming something the galaxy had never seen before, and across known space on thousands of worlds, beings watched the news broadcasts. They saw the disabled Council fleet. They saw the power humanity had been hiding, and they began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, the humans had been right all along. News of the disabled fleet spread across the galaxy in hours. By the end of the day, every major species knew what had happened. A single human ship had neutralized an entire battle fleet without destroying a single vessel or killing a single being. The Council called an emergency session. The chamber was packed. Every delegate attended this time. Fear had accomplished what duty could not. Archon Threlvac stood at the center, his crystalline form dim with worry. The humans have shown their strength. We can no longer dismiss them as a minor species. We must decide how to respond. Velmoth, who had led the delegation, spoke next. They offered us a choice. Join their commonwealth, stay with the Council, or remain independent. They claim they will not force anyone. A Xantharan senator stood, his voice angry. This is surrender. They attack our fleet and then offer us choices. We should assemble every ship we have. Show them that numbers still matter. But others disagreed. A delegate from a mid-level trading species spoke up. Did they attack? Or did they defend? The fleet entered their territory without permission. They could have destroyed it. Instead, they disabled it and returned every crew member safely. That is not the action of an aggressor. The argument went on for hours. Some demanded war. Others counseled patience. A few quietly suggested that maybe the humans had a point about the Council being broken. While the Council argued, things were happening across the galaxy. Small species that had always been treated as lesser members started to leave. One by one, they sent messages to the Terran sphere. Can we join? Will you really accept us as equals? The answer was always yes. Human diplomatic teams arrived within days. They brought aid. They brought technology. They brought respect. Within weeks, dozens of species had joined the Terran Commonwealth. The Council watched in growing alarm as their membership declined. Not just minor species either. Some important trading civilizations decided the Commonwealth offered better opportunities. Some scientific communities found human research partnerships more rewarding than Council bureaucracy. 6 months after the disabled fleet incident, the Archon called another session. This time the tone was different. Less anger. More desperation. We are losing species faster than we can replace them. Our economy continues to decline. Our influence shrinks daily. The Archon's voice sounded tired. We must face reality. The humans have won. No, General Krax shouted. We have not lost. We still have the majority of major powers. We still have military strength. We can still fight. An old delegate from a peaceful species stood slowly. General, what would we be fighting for? To maintain a system that clearly does not work? To force species to stay with us against their will? Is that really what the Council has become? The general sat down, having no answer. The small trader delegate who had spoken kindly at the human meeting raised their voice. I propose we officially recognize the Terran Commonwealth, not as enemies, as partners. Two different systems coexisting. Species can choose which they prefer or remain independent. The motion passed. Barely, but it passed. The Council formally acknowledged that they no longer controlled the galaxy alone. 2 years after the delegation to Earth, the galaxy had completely transformed. The Council still existed but diminished. Maybe 300 species remained loyal to it. The Terran Commonwealth had grown to 400 species. The rest stayed independent, trading with both sides. But the real change was not in numbers. It was in how things worked. Commonwealth species flourished. Technology spread freely. Poor worlds received aid without conditions. Young species were mentored instead of dismissed. Scientific discoveries were shared instantly across all member worlds. The Council members watched with envy and growing understanding. The humans had not been lying. They really did believe in equality. They really did want to help others. And that philosophy was proving more powerful than any weapon. Elena Vasquez stood in her office, now simply called the Commonwealth Center. She was much older now, her hair completely white, her face lined with years of hard work, but her eyes still held that same determination. A young human aide entered. Ambassador, the Council has sent another request. They want to discuss merging the two organizations, creating one unified galactic government based on Commonwealth principles. Elena looked out at Earth. Have they agreed to our terms? Full equality for all species? No hierarchies based on age or power? Democratic decision-making? The aide nodded. Yes, the Archon himself signed the agreement. He says the old council is dead. If they are to survive, they must change completely. Elena smiled slightly. Then schedule a meeting. It is time to finish what we started. The meeting took place on a neutral station between Council and Commonwealth territory. The symbolism was important, neither side coming to the other. Both meeting as equals, Archon Threlvax looked old now. His crystalline form had lost some of its luster. He stood across from Elena in a simple conference room, Ambassador Vasquez. He spoke quietly. I owe you an apology. The day we voted to strip humanity's status was the greatest mistake of my long life. I did not understand. None of us understood. Elena gestured to a seat. We all make mistakes, Archon. The question is whether we learn from them. They sat together, these former enemies. Around them, delegates from both sides waited nervously. The Council is dying, the Archon said bluntly. We cannot compete with what you have built. Not militarily, not economically, not morally. Species leave us every day. Within a decade, we will cease to exist. Elena nodded. I know. That was never our goal, but I understand why it happened. The Archon leaned forward. We want to merge, to create one unified organization, but we want it done right, using Commonwealth principles, true equality, real democracy, everything we should have been doing from the beginning. What about the species who opposed change? Elena asked. The military factions, the old powers who liked the hierarchy, most have come around. The Archon's voice was sad. General Crack still opposes it. A few others. But they are a minority now. Even the Zentharan Empire has agreed to the new terms. Elena was quiet for a long moment. Then she extended her hand. A human gesture. The Archon hesitated, then reached out with one crystalline appendage. They shook hands, sealing the agreement. The new organization will be called the Galactic Union, Elena said. Not Council, not Commonwealth. Something new that represents all of us. The Archon agreed. And you will lead it. You have earned that right. Elena shook her head. No. We will elect leaders democratically. Every species gets a vote, including yours. Including mine. That is the point of all this. The negotiations took months. Every detail had to be perfect. Every species needed representation. Every concern had to be addressed. But slowly, steadily, the framework emerged. The old council chamber on Concordia Prime was abandoned. A new one was built on a new station, designed with input from hundreds of species. It had no hierarchy of seating, no positions of higher or lower importance, just a great circle where all delegates sat as equals. The first meeting of the Galactic Union was scheduled. 700 species would attend, both former Council and Commonwealth members, plus dozens of formerly independent species who wanted to join this new organization. The night before the meeting, Elena stood alone on an observation deck. She thought about that day 5 years ago when she had walked out of the old council chamber. She had been angry then, disappointed but also determined. The Archon found her there. He stood beside her in silence for a while, both looking at the stars. Did you know it would turn out like this? He asked when you walked away that day. Elena smiled. No, I hoped we could build something better. I hoped other species would see there was another way. But I did not know for certain. The Archon's form glowed softly. Thank you, for not giving up on us, for showing us a better path. Elena turned to face him. Thank you for being willing to change. That takes true courage. They stood together looking out at a galaxy that had transformed. Tomorrow the real work would begin, building a truly united civilization, making sure every species felt valued, creating systems that served everyone, not just the powerful. It would not be easy. There would be challenges, disagreements, growing pains, but for the first time in galactic history, everyone would face those challenges together, as true equals. The day humans departed the Council really had changed the universe forever, just not in the way anyone expected. 10 years had passed since the formation of the Galactic Union. The changes were visible everywhere you looked. Space stations that once served only the wealthy now welcomed ships from the poorest worlds. Research facilities shared their discoveries instantly across the network. Medical treatments that had been restricted now saved lives on hundreds of planets. Elena Vasquez walked through the new Union headquarters. She moved slowly now. Age had finally caught up with her determination. But her mind remained sharp, and her influence was felt in every corner of galactic civilization. She had declined to run for Union Chancellor. Instead, that honor had gone to a leader from a small species that had been rescued from extinction by human aid. The symbolism was perfect. The humans who had transformed everything did not seek to rule. They had truly meant what they said about equality. A young Xantheran approached her in the hallway. Ambassador Vasquez, I am Kren, a student at the Union Academy. I am writing my thesis on the departure. May I ask you some questions? Elena smiled and gestured to a nearby bench. They sat together. The old human and the young warrior from a species that had once threatened war over human independence. What do you want to know? Elena asked. When you walked out of the old council chamber, did you know what would happen? Did you plan all of this? Elena laughed softly. No, I was angry, hurt. I wanted to show them they were wrong about us, but I did not have a master plan. We just did what humans do. We worked hard. We helped those who needed help. We built things. We tried to make life better for everyone around us. But the technology, Kren pressed. The rapid advancement. That must have been planned. Elena shook her head. We had always been capable of that progress. But when we were in the council, we limited ourselves. We did not want to seem threatening. We did not want other species to fear us. So we held back. When we left, we simply stopped holding back. We pursued what we were capable of. The young Xantheran was quiet for a moment. My grandparent was General Krax. He opposed everything you did. He died believing you had destroyed the natural order of things. Elena looked sad. I am sorry. I never wanted to be anyone's enemy. We just wanted respect, equality, a chance to contribute as full partners. Kren smiled. I know, and I am grateful you persisted. I grew up in this new galaxy, where species like mine are not judged by their military power, where young people like me can pursue science instead of warfare. My grandparent was wrong. You did not destroy the natural order. You showed us there was a better way to live. They sat in comfortable silence watching beings from dozens of species walk past. Humans and Xanthera working together, crystalline beings and organic ones sharing ideas, former enemies now friends. The transformation had not been easy. The first years were full of challenges. Some species struggled to accept equality after centuries of privilege. Others struggled to believe they deserved equal treatment after generations of being dismissed. There had been conflicts, small wars that required peacekeeping forces, economic disruptions as old systems broke down and new ones formed, political fights over resources and representation. But through it all, the core principle held. Every species mattered. Every voice deserved to be heard. Problems were solved through cooperation, not domination. The results spoke for themselves. Galactic GDP had tripled. Life expectancy across all species had increased. Violent conflicts had decreased by 80%. Scientific advancement was happening at rates nobody had thought possible. 3 species that had been on the verge of extinction now thrived. Their populations had grown. Their cultures flourished. They contributed valuable knowledge and unique perspectives to the Union. Elena's communicator chimed. She checked it and smiled. Kren, would you like to see something special? There is an event happening that I think you would find interesting for your thesis. They made their way to the Central Assembly Chamber. The great circular room was filled with delegates from every member species. At the center, something remarkable was happening. A new species was making first contact. Their ship had just entered Union space. They were primitive by galactic standards. They had only recently developed faster-than-light travel. Their technology was basic. Their understanding of galactic civilization was limited. In the old days, the Council would have dismissed them, made them observers at best, treated them as children who needed to prove themselves worthy. But this was not the old Council. The Union Chancellor, the small alien who had once faced extinction, stood to greet the newcomers personally. Welcome, friends. Welcome to a galaxy that has been waiting to meet you. You are not too young. You are not too primitive. You are exactly what you need to be, and we are honored by your presence. The new species representative looked overwhelmed. A human diplomat, one of Elena's former students, stepped forward to help guide them through the process. Warm, patient, respectful, Kren watched with wide eyes. "This is how first contact works now." Elena nodded. "Every new species is welcomed like this. Given support. Offered partnership. Not judged. Not ranked. Just welcomed. This is what we fought for. This is what we built." That evening, Elena returned to her small apartment on the station. It was simply furnished. She had never cared much for luxury. She made tea and sat by the window looking out at the stars. Her old friend, the Archon Threlvax, contacted her through the communication system. His crystalline form appeared as a hologram in her living room. "I watched the first contact ceremony today," he said quietly. "I found myself thinking about all the species we greeted that way in the old council. With condescension, with dismissal. How many potential friends did we lose? How much wisdom did we ignore?" Elena sipped her tea. "We cannot change the past, but we learned from it. That is what matters." The Archon was quiet for a moment. "I am old, Elena, even by my species standards. I have lived for centuries. I have seen empires rise and fall. But I have never seen anything like what you accomplished. You changed the galaxy through principle, through refusing to compromise on what was right. History will remember you as one of the great transformative figures of galactic civilization." Elena smiled. "History should remember all of us. You included. You had the courage to admit the old system was wrong, to accept change. That took strength. We both did what needed to be done." The Archon's form glowed warmly. "Rest well, old friend. Tomorrow brings new challenges." The hologram faded. Elena sat alone with her tea, thinking about everything that had happened. That day she walked out of the council chamber felt like yesterday and like a lifetime ago at the same time. She thought about the humans who had helped build this new galaxy. The engineers who shared their knowledge freely. The doctors who traveled to distant worlds to train others. The diplomats who patiently built bridges between former enemies. The scientists who collaborated across species lines. The ordinary people who simply treated everyone with respect and kindness. That was the real secret. There was no master plan, no grand strategy. Humanity had just done what came naturally to them. They helped. They shared. They treated others the way they wanted to be treated. And somehow that simple approach had transformed everything. A memorial had been built on the old Concordia Prime Station. The abandoned council chamber had been preserved as a museum. At its center stood a simple monument with words that Elena had written. "They asked us to leave. We did, and in leaving we learned to lead, not through force, not through superiority, but by showing there was a better way, by proving that strength and compassion could coexist, by building something that served everyone, not just the powerful." Students from hundreds of worlds visited that memorial every day. They studied what had happened. They learned about the mistakes of the old council. They learned about the courage it took to walk away. They learned about the work required to build something better, and they carried those lessons forward. A new generation was growing up knowing only this transformed galaxy, a generation that could not imagine treating species as lesser or greater, a generation that believed cooperation was normal and natural. Elena finished her tea and prepared for bed. Tomorrow she would give another lecture at the academy. She would meet with young people from across the galaxy. She would continue doing what she had always done, teaching, helping, building bridges. As she lay down to sleep, she smiled. The council members had been right about one thing. The day humans departed really had changed the universe forever, but they had not understood what kind of change it would be. They thought losing humanity would be a minor inconvenience. A troublesome voice silenced. A naive species put in its place. Instead, it had been the beginning of something beautiful. A galaxy where every being mattered, where cooperation triumphed over domination, where the strength to walk away had led to the wisdom to build something better. The stars shone through her window. Somewhere out there, humans and aliens worked together on countless projects, exploring, discovering, creating, living in a galaxy that finally understood what humanity had tried to teach from the beginning, that everyone deserved respect, that differences made civilization stronger, that the best way to lead was to serve, That true power came not from domination, but from lifting others up simple truths that had changed everything. The day humans departed the Galactic Council was indeed the day the universe changed forever.